Okay, so we are going to review Algebra 1, average rate of change, okay? Now, to start off with, in Algebra 1, you guys kind of just touched on average rate of change as being slope. So as you can see here, we're going to, where it says, how can I write the average rate of change? We're going to write out the ways that you learned how to write the average rate of change back in Algebra 1. So in Algebra 1, you learn to write the average rate of change as your change in y over your change in x, which equals y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Does that look and sound familiar? Okay. All right. So keeping those two things in mind, we're going to be using that information for the rest of the foldable. Okay. Here we have 4 representations of a function. The first representation of a function that we're going to look at is the graph. Okay. How to find the average rate of change from a graph. We're going to write the steps and then we're going to follow the steps. Okay. All right. So step 1, you're going to find the point. Find the points on the graph. Oh, I forgot. The other way that you learned is rise over run. My bad. I know I forgot one. So you're going to find the points on the graph and connect them with the line. And then step 2 is you're going to use rise over run to find the slope of the line. How do you feel about those 2 steps? Doable? So the first point we're looking for is x equals 1. So step 1 is to find the point. X equals 1 is here. The second point we're looking for is x equals 3. We're going to go to 3. Here's our second point. We're going to draw a line and connect them. I cheated and drew with the tool because normally my lines are horrible. It is. Ha ha ha. Magic. It's magic. All right. So there's my line connecting the 2 points. All right. And then I'm going to find the average rate of change by doing what? Rise over run. So rise over run. We rise 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. Positive because I went up. Positive because I went 2. So therefore our rise was, our run was 2, which is just 4. So the average rate of change for this graph from 1 to 3 is 4. Good? All right. Depends. All right. Next representation that we're going to do is looking at a table. So looking at it from a table, what do you think we're going to do? Well, I'm glad you asked. Step 1 is to identify the points, the starting and ending points on the table. So we're going to identify starting and ending. And end. The start is going to be our x1 and the end is going to be our x2. And then therefore it'll give us our y1 and our y2. OMG, then guess what step 2 is? Find it by plugging into y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So step 1 is identify our start and end. So our start, it says from 1 to 4. So where am I starting at? 1. So this is my x1. This is my y1. Where do I end at? 4. So this is my x2. This is my y2. And step 1's done. Now step 2 says to plug in. So we have y2 minus y1, so negative 11 minus 1 over x2 minus x1, so 4 minus 1. That gives us negative 12 over 3, which equals negative 4 over 1, which is just negative 4. How do you feel about it from a table? Good. Again, does this feel like an Algebra 1 review? Okay. If not, it's okay. That's why we're doing it. I'm not assuming you have this knowledge in there. All right, next. So we've done graph, table. Now we got to do equation. Does that make sense? We're going through all of our representations. Now we're at the equation. For the equation, you're going to step 1. You're going to substitute in the x values. Substitute. You're going to substitute in the x values to find their y values. Okay, then we're going to write it as an ordered pair. Ordered pair just means it's x comma y, right? And then step 3, we're now going to just use our y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. Does that sound doable? Okay, so we're going to follow step 1. It says substitute in the x values to find your y value. So the first x value they give us is x equals 2. So we're going to find f of 2, which equals 2 squared plus 4. What is 2 squared? What is 4 plus 4? 8. Still good? Yeah? We're going to do both. Substitute in the x values to find the y values. So we just did f of 2. Now we got to do x equals 3. So we're going to do f of 3 equals 3 squared plus 4. What is 3 squared? 9. 9 plus 4 equals 13. Okay, step 2 says write them as ordered pairs. So our ordered pairs would be 2, 8, because my input was 2 and my output was 8. Does that make sense? And our other ordered pair would be 3, 13, because our input was 3 and our output was 13. And then last but not least is step 3. And step 3 says to plug into y2 minus y1 over x2 minus x1. So our y2 is 13. Our y1 is 8. Agreed? 13 minus 8. Our x2 is 3. Our x1 is 2. So we have 3 minus 2. 13 minus 8 is 5. 3 minus 2 is 1. So our average rate of change is 5. What are your questions about finding the average rate of change given an equation?
I don't ever thought how to find an equation. Yeah. The other ones I remember, but I don't.
It's okay.
think I ever thought how to find them.
And that's okay.
This one was over. Would have been useful to know. Yeah. I've had that question.
Mm-hmm. But it's okay. That's what we're doing, right? All right. All right. It says plus 4 in the equation. It says x squared plus 4.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Never mind.
All right. Now we're at the newest part. So this is a maybe you saw it, maybe you didn't see it piece, and that is okay. So this would be more of us introducing like an Algebra 1, like, hey guys, this is how you're going to see things in Algebra 2, right? That's what the last tab is, using a function notation. So this is a preview of to what we're going to be doing in Algebra 2. Got it? All right. So steps to doing this. What this is telling you is that this is function notation. Function notation is the fancy way of representing y at a point. Does that make sense? So if I have f of x, that's x at a y value, right? So in this case, this is f of 5. This is y at 5. F of 3. This is y at 3. Does that make sense? That's what your function notation is telling you. When you're evaluating this, we're going to talk about what you're doing. So step 1 is you're going to identify your x values. You're going to identify your x values, and your x values are the numbers in parentheses. Okay. Step 2 is you're going to find your change in your x, your delta x. If I'm looking for the change in something, that means I'm doing what? Subtracting. This is all this means is that you're going to do x2 minus x1. Does that make sense? That's all delta x means to do. Step 3 is to identify your delta y. And your delta y is your difference. Delta y equals the difference. What's the result? Remember, when you subtract two things, the solution is called the difference, right? When you add two things, the solution is called the sum, okay? So your delta y is your difference. And then step 4 is you're just going to plug into delta y over delta x. So change in y over change in x. So here we go. Identifying our x values. So for this problem, step 1, our x values are going to be 5 and 3. Okay. X2 is your larger x. X1 is your smaller x. Does that make sense? All right. So step 1 is done. So therefore, step 2, to find our delta x. I didn't mean to write a y. Our delta x equals x2 minus x1. So in this case, it's going to be 5 minus 3, which equals 2. How do you feel about finding delta x? Doable? Okay. Step 3 is to identify your delta y. Your delta y is your difference, your solution to the subtraction problem. What is our solution to the subtraction problem? Our solution is -10. And then step 4 is to find delta y over delta x. And what do we get for delta y? -10. What do we get for delta x? 2. So what is our average rate of change? -5. Okay. How do you feel about the function notation? Good? Doable? All right. So this is our algebra review before we start the algebra 2. All right. Okay.